The garden was still, a hush of wind brushing through the tall flowers as though they whispered secrets to one another. The rustling was faint, too faint for any ordinary ear to catch, but Michael's senses had sharpened into blades of desperation. His finger pointed, his voice a low command. "There!" he hissed, rushing forward. The guards charged alongside him, their heavy boots pounding against the grass. Amy's heart slammed inside her chest. Every breath was jagged, tearing through her lungs like knives. She crouched lower in the flowers, her hands trembling against the damp earth, her body pressed so tightly to the soil she feared she might disappear into it. But she knew they had seen her. Hiding was no longer an option. Amy sprang to her feet, her sudden movement scattering petals into the air. For a brief heartbeat, time froze. The guard shouted. Michael's eyes blazed with both pain and fear, and Amy's legs surged forward in a desperate sprint. She bolted through the flowers, pushing her way past the rustling stalks, ignoring the scratches against her skin. "Catch her!" Michael roared. The men lunged after her, their breaths heavy and loud behind her. Amy's blood thundered in her ears as she darted across the garden, her eyes searching frantically for any escape. The tall fences loomed like prison walls on every side. No freedom, no path, only steel and stone. But then she saw it. A corner of the fence where the ground dipped into shadow, where the fence looked older, rust eating through its edges. It wasn't a way out, but it was a chance. She aimed for it, her bare feet thudding hard against the ground. One guard lunged, his hand grazing her arm. Amy twisted violently, her elbow slamming into his side. He stumbled back with a groan, buying her 2 more precious seconds. The second guard was faster, reaching out, but Amy dove into the shadowed corner and pressed herself against the fence. The rusted edge bit into her skin, tearing her palm as she gripped it. She pulled, pushed, clawed at the weak spot with a strength born from terror. The metal groaned, faintly but did not give way. "Amy!" Michael's voice was sharp, commanding, breaking with a tremor of desperation. "Stop! Don't do this! Please!" His words struck her like arrows, but she didn't stop. She scraped at the corroded joint, her fingers burning, blood streaking the rust. Behind her, footsteps pounded closer. Suddenly, a hand caught her wrist. The guard had her. Amy screamed, twisting with all her force. Her knee shot up, striking his thigh. He grunted, loosening his grip, but not enough. "No!" Amy shouted, raw fury tearing through her throat. With her free hand, she snatched a jagged shard of rusted metal she had pulled from the fence. She slashed blindly. The guard yelped, his grip breaking as the shard tore across his forearm. Amy shoved him back, her breath ragged, her eyes wild. She pressed her entire body against the weakened patch of fence and pushed with all she had. The metal shrieked, bending under her weight. For one miraculous instant, it gave way, cracking open just enough to slip through. She hurled herself into the gap, the edges slicing her arms, and tumbled onto the other side, rolling hard across gravel. "Amy!" Michael's voice shattered the air. She scrambled to her feet, ignoring the pain, and ran. The street stretched before her, empty but for the faint glow of street lamps. The air smelled of asphalt and city smoke, a world utterly foreign to her compared to North Hill. Her legs carried her blindly forward, each step pounding with the pulse of survival. Behind her, shouts echoed as the guards tried to follow, but the gap was too small for their broad shoulders. Their curses filled the night as Amy vanished into the shadows. Michael stood on the other side of the fence, his hand pressed to the iron bars, his breath harsh. His heart trembled in his chest, every beat laced with anguish. "She's gone," one guard muttered, clutching his bleeding arm. Michael's gaze remained fixed on the place where she had disappeared. His chest rose and fell, his face pale under the moonlight. The note she had left him earlier burned in his pocket like fire. "Broderick has come and taken me back to North Hill. You lost, Michael." The words tore at him more deeply than the wound on his head. He had lost her once in North Hill. And now, here in New York, she had slipped through his fingers again. But his resolve hardened. "She cannot run far," he whispered. "This city is vast, but she is alone. She doesn't know its streets. We will find her." Amy ran until her lungs felt as though they were filled with fire. Her legs trembled beneath her, each step weaker than the last. Finally, She stumbled into an alleyway, collapsing against the cold brick wall. Her chest heaved as she struggled to breathe, sweat mingling with the blood streaking her arms. She pressed her forehead against the wall, trying to gather herself, trying to silence the chaos in her mind. She was free. For now. But freedom had never felt so fragile. The city stretched before her like an endless labyrinth. She had no money, no friends here, no knowledge of where she was. The sounds of distant traffic filled the air, alien and overwhelming. Amy slid down the wall until she sat on the ground, hugging her knees. Her body ached, her spirit trembled, but her mind burned with one thought: I cannot go back. And yet, in the silence of that dark alley, another thought slipped in, one she didn't want but couldn't stop. Will Irvin know I am here? Will Brick find me? Or am I truly alone? Her tears came hot and unbidden, streaking down her dirt-stained face. Michael stormed into his study, his hands trembling as he dialed a number on his phone. A man's voice answered. Yes. She escaped, Michael said, his voice breaking with both fury and fear. Amy escaped the mansion. She's in the city now. There was a long silence on the other end before the man spoke again. Then we must move quickly. In New York, your power is nothing without discretion. If she finds the right people, she could ruin everything. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. I don't care what it costs. Find her. I will, the man replied. But remember this. Every move in the city leaves a shadow. If you're not careful, the shadows will consume you. Michael ended the call, his reflection staring back at him from the darkened window. His face was pale, drawn, but his eyes burned with an obsession he could not kill. She will return to me, he whispered, no matter what it takes. Amy wandered the streets until dawn painted the sky in gray and rose. The city was alive now, people rushing to work, horns blaring, voices rising. She walked among them like a ghost, unseen, unnoticed. But inside, she felt the eyes of the world burning into her. Every shadow could hide Michael's men. Every sound could be his pursuit. She pulled her hood over her head, clutching her arms against her chest. Her wounds throbbed, but she ignored them. She needed to find safety. She needed help. The question was, whom could she trust in this city of strangers? Her steps slowed when she saw a church ahead, its doors open, its bells ringing softly in the morning air. Something inside her stirred, hope, or maybe desperation disguised as faith. Amy stepped inside, the air cool and still, the scent of old wood and candle wax wrapping around her like a fragile comfort. She sat in the back pew, her body trembling, her mind racing. And there, for the first time since she had struck Michael down, she prayed. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please don't let him find me. Her prayer vanished into the silence, but deep within the church, a figure stirred, a man watching her with eyes that seemed to know too much. The silence of the church pressed around Amy like a cocoon, still and sacred. She sat hunched in the back pew, her hands clasped tightly, though she wasn't sure if she was praying or simply holding herself together. Her breaths were uneven, her eyes red from exhaustion, her body aching from the frantic flight of the night before. The candles flickered along the altar, tiny flames dancing against the shadows of tall, stained-glass windows. Light streamed in faintly, washing her face in hues of gold, green, and crimson. For a moment, she almost felt safe. Almost. Her whispered plea still hung in the air. She hadn't spoken to God in so long. Now, she begged as if heaven could suddenly descend into her shattered life. Please, she repeated, her voice low, raw. Don't let him find me. I can't go back. Not again. Please. A soft creak echoed through the nave. Amy stiffened, her head jerking upward. From the far corner, half hidden by shadow, a man stepped forward. He was tall, his frame lean but commanding, his hair graying at the temples. His suit was plain, yet carried an air of precision, as though nothing about him was accidental. His eyes, steel blue, sharp and observant, fixed on her with unsettling calm. You look lost, he said, his voice deep, steady, carrying across the church with a resonance that seemed to settle in her chest. Amy's hands tightened in her lap. She tried to summon strength, to appear calm, though her voice betrayed her tremor. I I just needed a place to rest. The man's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. Everyone who comes here is searching for something. Shelter, forgiveness, or sometimes escape. Her stomach clenched. Escape. The word hung in the air like a blade. Who are you? She asked cautiously. He stepped closer, his polished shoes quiet on the stone floor. My name is Edward Grant. I am a caretaker of this church in a way, and sometimes a listener for those who have no one else to hear them. Amy studied him, uncertain. Something about his presence unnerved her. He was too composed, too exact. But at the same time, his voice carried no mockery, no false gentleness. It was matter of fact, as though he had long grown accustomed to the broken who wandered through these doors. She lowered her eyes. I don't need a listener. I just need to be left alone. Edward's head tilted slightly. And yet you prayed. You asked not to be found. Amy's breath caught. She hadn't realized anyone had heard her words. He continued, his voice lowering, his eyes unwavering. Who is it that you fear so much? Her throat tightened. Images flashed through her mind. Michael's tear-streaked face, the vase crashing against his head, the blood, the guards, the desperate escape. Her entire body trembled. She wanted to say nothing, to deny him. But the words tumbled out, fragile and desperate. Someone who won't let me go. Edward's gaze sharpened, though he did not move closer. Then you are hunted. Amy swallowed hard, unable to speak. Edward stepped back, as though granting her space. You are not the first to come here fleeing chains, nor will you be the last. But you must understand, New York is a city of eyes. To disappear here, you need more than fear. You need allies. Without them, the city will swallow you whole. Her heart pounded at his words. Allies? Was he offering help? Or was he another trap? Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Edward's eyes flickered, not with warmth but with something sharper, like calculation wrapped in concern. Because you have the look of someone whose past is too heavy to carry alone. You ask God for help. Sometimes, he answers in the form of men who are listening. Amy's mind raced. Could she trust him? Michael's reach might not be as strong here, but he was resourceful. For all she knew, this man was already working with him. I don't trust easily, she said quietly. That is wise, Edward replied simply. But trust and survival are often tangled. Without one, the other withers. His words sank into her chest like stones in water. At last, Edward stepped back toward the altar. The church doors are always open. Rest if you need it. No one will harm you here, not while I am here. With that, he turned away, leaving Amy to sit in the silence, her thoughts twisting like storm clouds. Meanwhile, Michael stood at the window of his New York mansion, staring out at the city that pulsed with life beyond his reach. His temples throbbed, his jaw tight with frustration. The guards had failed. Amy had slipped from his grasp. He replayed the moment in his mind. The weight of her betrayal, the vase shattering against his skull, her vanishing into the night like smoke. His chest ached, not with anger alone but with something far more corrosive, fear of losing her forever. He dialed the number again. The same voice answered. Yes. She's in the city, Michael said. His tone clipped. Find her. The voice paused. I told you last night, New York is not North Hill. Too many players, too many shadows. If she stumbles into the wrong hands, she won't simply disappear. She'll be used. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. Then don't let that happen. She belongs to me. The man on the other end chuckled darkly. No, Michael. No one belongs to anyone. Not here. Not in the city. If you want her back, you will need more than desperation. You will need power. Michael's voice lowered, laced with a threat. I have power. Not enough, the voice said, and the line went dead. Michael stared at the phone in silence, rage simmering beneath his skin. He would not lose her. Not again. He would scour the city, brick by brick, until Amy was his once more. Amy spent the next hours in the church, her body still, her mind restless. The sanctuary was a fragile shield against the chaos outside, but she knew she couldn't stay forever. Michael would be searching. His money, his influence. It might not stretch as far here, but it would stretch enough. As twilight bled into the city once more, Edward reappeared. He carried no Bible, No sign of priestly duty. Instead, he carried a small paper bag. He set it gently beside her. "You need food," he said simply. Amy blinked at him, unsure whether to thank him or question him. But her hunger gnawed at her, and she accepted. Inside was bread, cheese, and a bottle of water. She ate in silence, her eyes flicking to him often. Finally, she spoke. "Why are you helping me?" Edward's gaze softened faintly. "Because everyone deserves at least one chance to outrun their ghosts." Amy looked down, tears threatening her eyes. "Eat," Edward said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Tomorrow, I will show you a place where you might be safe. But tonight, you must rest. You cannot run forever on broken strength." She hesitated, but exhaustion weighed too heavily on her. At last, she nodded. That night, Amy lay curled on a pew, the wooden surface hard beneath her, the faint glow of candles flickering overhead. For the first time in days, she closed her eyes and drifted into uneasy sleep. But outside the church, hidden in the shadows across the street, another pair of eyes watched. A man leaned against a lamppost, his posture casual but his gaze unblinking. He had been there since morning, observing, waiting. His lips curved into a faint smirk as he lit a cigarette. "She won't be hidden here for long," he murmured into the smoke. Then he made a call. "Boss, I found her." The church bells tolled softly at dawn, their sound drifting into the gray air of New York City. Amy stirred from her fragile sleep, her body aching from the wooden pew that had served as her bed. The candlelight had burned down through the night, leaving only wax stubs, and now faint sunlight crept through the stained glass windows, painting broken colors across her skin. She sat up slowly, disoriented at first, then remembered where she was and why. The memories came like sharp stones. Michael's mansion, the blow of the vase, the desperate scramble through rusted iron, the street lights of a foreign city. And then Edward Grant, the man with sharp eyes and words too measured to be careless. Amy's hands trembled as she pushed her hair back. She hadn't meant to sleep so deeply. She had promised herself she would stay alert, ready to run at the faintest sound of pursuit. But her body had betrayed her. Exhaustion had dragged her into sleep like a tide. Now she was awake, and awake meant vulnerable again. The church was empty, its silence so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. She stood and stretched stiff limbs, then glanced toward the doors. Should she leave before Edward returned? Could she risk following him to this so-called safe place he had spoken of? Her instincts screamed caution, but her other instincts, the ones grounded in survival, knew she had nowhere else to go. She lingered in the pew until footsteps broke the silence. Edward appeared from a side corridor, his stride measured, his expression calm. He carried a small duffel bag, slung over one shoulder. "You're awake," he said simply. Amy nodded, her eyes wary. "I should leave." Edward set the bag down on the pew opposite her. "If you walk out those doors without direction, you'll last hours at best. This city devours the unprepared." Her chest tightened. "Then what do you suggest?" "I told you last night," he replied, his voice low but firm. "There's a place where you might find shelter. But it comes with conditions." Amy's heart skipped. "What kind of conditions?" Edward leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped. "You cannot speak of your past. Not to anyone. Not to the people you will meet. Not to the ones who offer you food or a bed. You are a shadow now, Miss Amy. Shadows survive only when they are silent." His eyes lingered on her face, sharp and unwavering. "Do you understand?" Amy hesitated, then gave a small nod. Edward rose, smoothly, lifting the duffel bag. "Then come with me." The streets of New York were alive now, the morning rush in full bloom. Horns blared, conversations buzzed, footsteps hurried across sidewalks. Amy walked beside Edward, her hood drawn up, her eyes darting from face to face, every passerby a potential threat. Edward seemed unaffected by the chaos. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew every corner, every alley, every secret of the city. Amy followed, clutching her arms tightly around herself. "Where are we going?" she asked at last. Edward didn't glance at her. "To a part of the city where questions are dangerous and answers are rarer. A place where you can be invisible." His words were both terrifying and strangely comforting. Invisible was what she wanted. Invisible meant Michael couldn't find her. They walked for nearly an hour, weaving through streets until the towering skyscrapers gave way to older, narrower blocks. Graffiti covered the walls, dumpsters lined alleys, and the air smelled faintly of damp stone and smoke. At last, Edward stopped before an unmarked door between two shuttered shops. He tapped lightly, 3 quick knocks followed by 2 slower ones. The door opened a fraction, and a pair of dark eyes peered out. A man with a scar cutting across his cheek studied Edward, then glanced at Amy. "She's with me," Edward said. The door opened wider. "Then she's safe," the man muttered. Amy followed Edward inside, her pulse quickening. The room beyond was dimly lit, its walls bare brick, its furniture mismatched and worn. A few people lingered, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow yet sharp with caution. They looked at Amy with curiosity, but no one spoke. "This," Edward said quietly, "is sanctuary. Not a perfect one, but safer than the streets. These people are like you. They've run from something, or someone. They survived together. You may stay if you abide by the rule. Silence about your past." Amy nodded again, her throat dry. A woman with tangled hair and tired eyes handed her a blanket and gestured toward an empty cot. Amy murmured thanks, though the word felt foreign in her mouth. She sank onto the cot, clutching the blanket tightly. Edward lingered only a moment longer. "I'll return later," he said. "Rest." Then he was gone, leaving Amy surrounded by strangers, in a place that smelled of dust and weariness. For the first time since her escape, she was not running. But peace felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Across the city, Michael sat in the back seat of a sleek black car. The man beside him, tall, lean, with slicked back hair, was the one who had promised to find Amy. His name was Donovan Price, and he was known in certain circles as a man who could locate anyone, anywhere, for the right price. "She was seen entering a church yesterday morning," Donovan said, his tone casual. "Stayed there overnight, and then she left with a man." Michael's jaw tightened. "A man?" "Edward Grant," Donovan replied, lighting a cigarette. Smoke curled in the air as his lips curved into a thin smile. "A name you don't forget once you hear it. Former intelligence, some say. Others whisper he's a broker of sorts. He collects people the way others collect coins. People who are running. People who are hiding." Michael's hands curled into fists. "He has her." Donovan exhaled smoke. "For now. But Edward plays a dangerous game. If she's in his care, she'll be buried deep. To pull her out, you'll need to play by his rules." Michael's eyes burned with fury. "I don't care about his rules. She's mine. Bring her back." Donovan's smirk widened faintly. "Careful with words like that in this city, Michael. Ownership doesn't exist here. Not of people, anyway. Desire does. Obsession does. But ownership, that's an illusion." Michael turned his gaze to the window, the city rushing past in streaks of light and shadow. His voice, when it came, was cold steel. "Then I'll shatter the illusion." Back in the sanctuary, Amy lay awake on the cot, the blanket pulled tightly around her. The air was heavy with the scent of dust, sweat, and quiet despair. Around her, the others slept or stared silently at the ceiling, each lost in their own storms. She closed her eyes, but rest would not come. Images haunted her. Michael's tears, the sharp crack of the vase, the desperate scramble through rusted iron. She had escaped. Yes, but escape was not freedom. A faint sound caught her attention. The door creaked. She sat up, her pulse quickening. The scarred man who had led her in stood near the entrance, speaking in hushed tones to someone outside. Amy strained to listen, but their voices were too low. At last, the man shut the door and turned back, his expression unreadable. Amy lay down again, but her unease grew. Somewhere in the city, Michael was searching. She knew it. She felt it. And Edward Grant, whatever his true motives, was not a man she fully understood. For now, she was caught between shadows. One had held her captive, the other had offered her sanctuary. But both, she feared, wanted something she did not yet see. And as the night deepened, the watcher outside the sanctuary lit another cigarette and smiled into the darkness. "She can run," he murmured, "but the city will always give her back." The morning after the feast came quietly, with soft mists rising from the river and drifting lazily over the fields. The village stirred slowly, as though reluctant to let go of the joy of the night before. Children still hummed the songs of the drums, women spoke of the graceful dancers, and men praised the abundance of the hunt. Yet beneath the calm of dawn, shadows moved, shadows that no one saw, shadows that whispered secrets of what was to come. Amma woke before the sun had fully risen, her heart restless. The baobab tree had returned to her dreams once more. This time, its branches stretched higher than ever, its roots burrowing deep into unseen worlds. She saw faces in its bark, human and animal alike, their eyes glowing with strange light. And always the same whisper, "The river carries more than water. Beware what sleeps beneath its skin." She shivered, even as the warmth of her blanket wrapped around her. Down by the water's edge, Cato was already at work. He knelt by the shallows, staring into the ripples as though searching for something hidden. His spear lay beside him, untouched. He had not joined the dances the night before, nor had he eaten much. His mind had been elsewhere, haunted by the strange cries he had heard near the riverbank days ago. He had not told anyone, fearing they would dismiss his worries as imagination. But he knew what he had heard. Cries not of bird or beast, but of something caught between the two. The chief, meanwhile, gathered the elders beneath the great shade of a tree in the center of the village. Their voices carried softly as they spoke of alliances, of trade, of the need to prepare for the dry season ahead. Yet even as they discussed ordinary matters, one elder's voice rose above the rest. It was Elder NSU, the oldest among them, his beard long and white, his back bent with the weight of years. "The signs are not to be ignored," he warned, his eyes sharp despite his age. "The drums carried not only joy last night, they carried warnings. I heard it in the rhythm. Something stirs beyond our sight. Something waits." The others shifted uneasily. They respected NSU, but his words often carried the weight of riddles. Some nodded in agreement, others shook their heads, insisting that last night was only a celebration of abundance, nothing more. But Amma, standing nearby to bring water, froze when she heard him. His words echoed the very visions she had seen in her dreams. Later that day, the peace of the village was broken. A boy ran in from the edge of the forest, his eyes wide with terror, his breath ragged. He could barely speak, but when at last the words burst from his lips, the villagers fell silent. A hunter, missing, the forest swallowed him. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The missing hunter was Jairo, a strong man, known for his courage and skill. He had set out at dawn with 2 others, but when the others returned, he was gone. They claimed that one moment he walked beside them, and the next he vanished into the shadows of the trees without a sound. No sign of struggle, no cry for help, only silence. Fear settled over the village like a heavy cloak. The chief ordered a search party, and men prepared their spears. Cato, though uneasy, joined them, for he could not ignore the call of duty. Amma watched them disappear into the forest, her heart heavy. The trees loomed tall and dark, their whispers almost audible in the wind. She felt the baobabs warning deep in her bones. Hours passed before the party returned. They carried Jairo's spear, but not Jairo himself. His footprints led into the forest and then stopped suddenly, as if the earth had swallowed him whole. No blood, no torn clothes, no sign of a fight, just nothingness. The village fell into silence. Mothers pulled their children close, fathers sharpened their blades, and the elders muttered prayers to the ancestors. That night, no drums were played. Fires burned low, and the laughter of the previous evening seemed like a memory from another world. Amma could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the thatched roof above her. In the distance, the river shimmered in the moonlight, its waters whispering. She rose quietly, wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and stepped into the night. Something pulled her toward the baobab. When she reached it, she placed her hands against its rough bark. The whispers returned, clearer this time. One taken, many more to come. The forest is hungry. The river waits. The choice will be yours. Her knees weakened, and she sank to the ground, trembling. The great tree seemed alive beneath her palms, its pulse steady, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. She wanted to cry out, to warn the village, but how could she? They would call her a dreamer, a child of fantasies. Yet deep down she knew the truth The tree was not only a guardian, it was a messenger. The forest had claimed its first life, and it would not stop there. The village awoke under a cloud heavier than the dawn mist. Fear clung to every hut, to every path, to every heart. The disappearance of Jairo had left a silence so deep that even the children, usually quick to chatter, played without laughter. The elders tried to carry on with their duties, but the unease could not be hidden. Everyone felt it. The forest had grown closer, darker, as though its shadows stretched long fingers toward them. Amma walked through the marketplace, her basket empty in her hands. She saw the faces of her people, drawn and tense, and she felt the burden of the baobabs whisper pressing down on her. She remembered Elder NSU's words, remembered the way the tree had pulsed beneath her palms the night before. One taken, many more to come. By the river, she found Cato sharpening his spear. He looked restless, his jaw set in determination, but in his eyes burned a fire Amma had not seen before. He glanced up as she approached, his expression softening. "You heard it too, didn't you?" he said quietly, almost as if afraid the wind might carry his words to listening spirits. Amma's breath caught. "Heard what?" "The forest," Cato whispered, lowering his spear. "It isn't empty. Last night, when I couldn't sleep, I went near the trees. I thought I saw something move, something too big to be man, too strange to be beast. It watched me, Amma. I felt its eyes, and when I turned it was gone." Amma's skin prickled. She wanted to tell him about her dreams, about the baobab's warnings, but before she could speak, a sudden cry split the air. Villagers rushed toward the sound, spears in hand, and Amma and Cato ran with them. By the edge of the fields, a young woman knelt in the dirt, clutching her head and sobbing. She was shaking, her clothes torn, her face pale with terror. "They took him!" she screamed, pointing toward the forest. "My brother, he was walking with me, and then he was gone, pulled into the trees by something I couldn't see." The crowd erupted in fearful shouts. Some demanded torches to burn the forest. Others urged prayers to appease the spirits, while a few muttered that curses had fallen upon the village. The chief raised his hand for silence, though his own voice trembled when he spoke. "No one goes into the forest alone. From this day we stay together, we move together, and we guard one another. The land is testing us, but we will not break." Yet Amma felt the weight of the baobab's words. The choice will be yours. The land was not simply testing them, it was warning them. That night, as the village huddled close around dim fires, Amma dreamed again. The baobab loomed before her, its branches stretching across the sky like veins of light. Beneath it, the river glowed, alive with faces that rose and sank beneath the water's skin, faces of the missing, Jairo among them, their mouths open in silent cries. And above them all, a figure cloaked in shadow whispered her name. "Amma!" She turned, but the figure's face was hidden, its voice echoing like a song through the trees. "You will stand at the edge where forest meets water. You will choose, life or death, sacrifice or salvation. If you fail, the hunger will not end." She woke with a start, sweat dripping from her brow. The cries of the dream still echoed in her ears, and when she stepped outside, she froze. The baobab stood bathed in moonlight, its shadow stretched across the village like a protective arm. Yet at its roots, something moved, something dark. She squinted, and for an instant, she saw the outline of a figure, tall, thin, its limbs twisted like branches. It watched her, and then, as quickly as it appeared, it melted into the night. Amma's breath came fast. She knew now that the village's fate was tied not only to the missing but to her. The baobab was calling her to action. She could not stay silent any longer. At dawn she would speak.